Hi, everybody. This is take two of part two of the 2024 year-end review. I am here to answer questions for anybody that should come on. Sorry for the late notice that I was doing this, but I kind of wanted to get it out of the way, and I kind of wanted to see if maybe a weekend was a better time for folks than a weekday. I think I've gotten out most of the bugs from last time. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and start things. Hopefully people roll on. I'm going to talk through regardless. Share my screen.
Hi, I'm Jim Lowe, and welcome to day 5 of our journey into California's Golden Trout country. It's September 3rd, 2024. Today we're going to be heading back to the PCT, and it's probably going to be a 5-hour trek to another off-trail lake. One last look at the lake. I suspect this will probably be my last time coming here.
Yeah, I say that, but I still haven't fished that upper lake, and I kind of would like to fish the upper lake. People say that, some people say it has bigger fish. Some people say it doesn't have any fish at all. I suspect maybe at one point in time it had bigger fish and they all died out. But I would like to see for myself. So it's very likely that in 2026 or 2027, maybe I'll be coming back. This next lake that we're going to, I didn't really know too much about. I've never been there. I'd done a little bit of research. The initial beta had shown that it would probably have fish that were as large as the fish that we were catching here. And so we were excited to find that out.
Still bushwhacking our way up. Where's it? It's almost 3 o'clock. A nice little canyon right there.
Now, this was an amazing hike. Most of it was off trail. If you looked at the map, it looked like it was simply following the stream to a group of lakes. And as I always say, the map isn't the territory. And sure, the map contours and everything else that's supposed to give you the lay of the land. But, stuff like this that probably didn't, doesn't show up on the contours, and it doesn't. If you look at the map, you wouldn't know that there's this huge canyon running through. Probably because it's maybe only 30 feet high or whatever, but it was still a spectacular and unexpected sight. No, I'm live. Yeah, definitely live. And this is actually the second take, so I'm trying to correct all the links that I had sent out earlier.
That's pretty amazing. We've got to get up this, and then you're only about halfway from where we turned off.
And feel free to ask me questions. As you can see, this trek was absolutely beautiful.
There's the outlets on this side. There's an inlet.
So hopefully I've changed all the lakes that I need to. Well, thanks for joining. It's nice when when I can interact with folks, especially that comment. It's always nice to see who's actually watching. Now, this song, this is if you've been watching, you've heard this song, a different version. A buddy of mine wrote this song for me, and he wrote like 4 different versions. There's the one that I'm using at the end. There's the one that I'm using at the end of all the videos now. There's this one, which is a little better. There's one that's like a Kasha Gugu version. It's, you know, it's pretty cool. Now, you can't really see it, but up behind that highest peak there is actually, right behind it is actually Mount Whitney. You just can't see it from this angle. Actually, I had a hard time seeing Whitney from the lake, but I'm sure if we were higher, we'd be able to see it. Cool. Where do you plan to go this summer?
That's so weird. I lost another fish. What's going on?
Now, this was a funny lake.
Looks like Roger might be landing one.
You know, we thought it was going to have...
Hey, I got a small one finally. Actually, it struck right as I was about to recast. Let's see if I can get this one in.
So we thought it was going to have big fish. They were all about this size that I caught.
Here's bending down again. Probably got another fish.
Roger did do better on this lake than I did. He caught a fish that was up to 16. He found a weed bed and sort of planted himself on that weed bed for a good while. It was consistent though.
Okay, so Roger and I were having a conversation, and I hooked a fish.
Hey, Mike.
The first 5 fish that I hooked, they were all on the scud, and so I put on the Gold Ribs Hare's Ear, and
you know, I used to fish Lassen a lot, and as I started focusing more on lake fishing, you know, I haven't been up there in years.
Where's that stupid net?
But opening day,
I'm not gonna bother pulling this one out. Just gonna
the October caddis hatch, I was always there. The sunset was absolutely beautiful.
This is the end of day 5. Pretty epic day. Not only in the country that we traveled, but we got to see a lot of cool things. We got to check out the
Oh, hey, Rod.
The ranger cabin. Made it to the ranger. That was kind of cool. You know, saw some beautiful country today. Chicken. Oh yeah, we did see the chickens, didn't we? Yeah, we got to see, like, geez, in total probably 9 Sierra chickens. So that was kind of cool. That last 4 hours over cross country was pretty gnarly. We're gonna have to take that in.
Sure, I'll do that. I'll create a video on, to be honest. I use maybe a half dozen flies. I mean, I've got a box full of patterns. For the October caddis, I actually have a cased caddis pattern that I use in the high country that I use. It's actually an October caddis, cased caddis pattern. And what I found is that it works extremely well. You know, I think caddis in general are probably overlooked in the high country. Probably especially because most people think, you know, just impressionistic patterns and whatever will work fine. But I find that, you know, if you're on a lake that's got caddis in it and you've got a good caddis pattern, there's nothing better. I don't recall. It's probably at 11,000 somewhere around there, I think. I can look it up.
To account on the way back in terms of our planning. We've got one night here, so tomorrow I'm probably going to fish pretty hard, but I need to. I'm hoping tomorrow that it warms up enough so I can you know, do some laundry and bathe a little bit, because I'm starting to smell pretty bad. So hopefully, you know, hopefully I can take some time out of the fishing tomorrow and not freeze and do that. Yeah, I don't know what else to say. We're on top of this really cool high plateau with Mount Whitney, just to our right. And yeah, I'm gonna see if I can check out the stars later tonight.
Naked and unafraid. Yeah, I was trying to find the lake on my phone, but I'll look later, and I will let you know. You can see it's a fairly big lake, and as I said earlier, for those that might not have been there, might not have been here, right over, and this will kind of give you an idea of where it is. Right behind this peak here, this highest peak, is Mount Whitney. In fact, that I guess there's a slim possibility that could be that little ledge to the left. I guess that could possibly be Whitney, but Whitney's right back there. Hi, Kyle. Thanks, I appreciate it. Looks like somebody already knows where we are. Okay, there you go. 11,300 feet.
This High Country Chronicle.
And thank you for not mentioning the lake.
In our journey through the California Golden Trout Country. Today is a fishing day. We've spent the night on this high country lake close to Mount Whitney. It's supposed to have large golden trout.
So Game Killer, have you been there?
That we've been given on the lake is a little different than what we've experienced. So we came up here expecting there to be fewer fish than where we were earlier in the trip, but on average larger. And the reality is that the numbers seem to be pretty much the same, but the average size seems to be smaller. So this seems to be one of those places that has a decent fish population, maybe a decent amount of very large fish. Well, we'll find out. Okay, finally hooked into a fish. Not a bad fish. 13 inches maybe.
Yeah, most of these lakes were high. I mean, all these lakes were over 10,000 feet.
Not bad. Another 12-inch fish, I guess. Maybe 13.
And this basically is my attitude the entire day. This was my experience the entire day.
So I came out here and joined Roger on his weed bed. I think I went like 2 for 10 fish here. Like, just ridiculous number of fish that I'm missing.
Sure, I'll do a video on my favorite patterns for high country fishing.
Cruising the bank. Most of them are in the 12-inch range. He's a hot fish. I don't think he's very big though. Okay. Not a very big fish.
Let's see if I can get this stopped. So, no, I didn't. Okay. So on this trip, I'm fishing the gold ribs hare's ear. So I tie a soft tackle gold ribs hair. I've been fishing it for decades. It catches everything everywhere. I also have a lot of Denny Rickards patterns. I'm a very, very staunch believer in Denny Rickards patterns and techniques. And so on this lake, in fact, we're probably both fishing a stillwater nymph. But I would say the patterns that I fish the most are going to be that cripple caddis. No, not the cripple caddis. Sorry, the gold ribs hare's ear, Rickards calabatus nymph, especially in the Emigrant Wilderness. The calabatus nymph, just absolutely slays. And then the stillwater nymph. Those are probably, for high country fly fishing, those are probably my top 3. A close fourth behind that would be like a size 18 hare's ear. And then, I've got various dry flies and others that I use depending on the situation.
Fish. Chunky. Okay, that's bigger than I thought it was.
Got it.
Well, thus ends day 6.
How much weight do I carry?
Blake.
So if you're talking pack weight, typically I'm carrying about, it's probably about 35 to 30 pounds typically. On this trip, though, I went really, really heavy, and I suffered for it. I forget how much we figured I was carrying on this trip. I think it was like 55 pounds or something absolutely ridiculous, and I absolutely felt it. I was carrying a lot of stuff that I didn't need. I didn't need to bring. I was carrying a lot of camera gear, a lot of extra this, extra that. It was just unnecessary, and it really wore me down.
Didn't live up to our expectations. We caught plenty of fish. We caught plenty of good-sized goldens. Just not the 22-inch fish that we thought might be in here. Now there might be a better time of year.
Yeah, I try not to mention lakes unless I feel it's a place that's pretty well known. In fact, I don't remember if it was in this episode or the next episode. I had a brief discussion about hot spotting, and my feelings about it and what I'm trying to do with my videos. And I'm kind of trying to do with my videos what Charles McDermott did with his books. If you've never read Charles McDermott's books, in fact, I've got one right here. Where is it? So Charles McDermott was a magazine writer, an avid fisherman, and I forget which outdoor magazine he wrote for. It was like in the early 50s, and he had a slew of articles that he put together into two books. What was it? Let's see, Yosemite and Kings Canyon Trout and The Waters of Golden Trout Country. Those are the two books, and they're absolutely wonderful. And they basically take you along with him during his backcountry trips. It's not about hot spotting. It's about you enjoying the journey with him and experiencing it for yourself. And that's kind of what I try to do with my videos.
Come and pick up those fish, maybe at the end of the season when they're super hungry, or early in the season, close to spawning. But for our experience today, we just didn't see them. So, overall though, we fished it hard. We had a good day. We had lots of fun, and tomorrow's another adventure.
Cool. Yeah, that's an excellent book.
We are on day 7 of an 8-day journey through the California trout country. We're making our way out today. So we've got 2 days to get out. We're going to be going out over Shepherd Pass. I'm not quite sure tonight where we're going to be spending the night. It's really going to depend on how much energy we have and how long the trek is. Okay, it's about 10 after 8, and we're off. It's going to be at least 3 hours off trail to the PCT. It took us 4 hours to get in, but it's downhill. And hopefully now we know where we're going. So
yeah.
After that, I don't know, maybe another 3 to 5 hours to get close enough to Shepherd to spend the night.
Yeah, on the way up, we didn't really know where we were going. I mean, we knew where the lake was. We had the maps and everything else. But as I said, the maps aren't the terrain, and there were some spots where you basically come to essentially a canyon, and it's like, okay, do you go up the right side of the canyon? Do you go up the left side of the canyon? I am not too surprised about going to Cottonwood and getting stuck in snow. Cottonwood can be dicey. I would have expected it to be dicey maybe 2 or 3 weeks later. But I mean that area. Well, I say that, and if you go and look at, I have a video on the channel that where Roger and I were caught in a snowstorm, and we were coming out Cottonwood Pass, and that was probably about the same time. Yeah, the whole area can be dicey late September. This was an beautiful plateau.
Okay, gradually going across the basin, looking for water.
Now that's on my left shoulder. That's going to be the not behind me, but more to the front. That's going to be the Kern Range, or the Kern Plateau, I guess.
We did find 2 dry creek beds, and ran somebody who said there was water up ahead, so we'll see. So there's the pass, and it's 2 o'clock. We're within eyesight of it. That's a pretty good sign. Should pass. Here's the water. Some small, nice little pools.
And how did you do at Cottonwood?
We filled up with water, and we should be good until camp. So how crazy is that? We're fishing this creek.
Yeah, that was the coolest thing. So you're up in this high plateau, and they've got to be golden trout, I've got to imagine, because it goes right into
Roger and I
Tyndale Creek.
arrived here early enough to spend the night at what we consider a very special lake. Fishing game, we're now fishing wildlife. Planted these lakes with Colorado cuts.
So, and in terms of what is probably the most relevant source for, or most up-to-date source for fish populations, I get on the Fish and Wildlife website and look at the stocking numbers. If you go to High Sierra Topics and go to the fishing section, they have a list there of all of the lakes that have been reported as no longer containing fish. And then, of course, you've got the Eastern Sierra Backcountry Trout Guide or Fishing Guide, which I actually put a link on the last live video. And that actually has a list of all of the lakes that are considered to be in the Eastern Sierra Backcountry, with all of the different species that are in that lake. So those are pretty good resources for folks to use. Did I ever make it to upper? No, I haven't made it to the upper third lake yet. And that's what I was saying. Even though when I'm coming out of that lake, I mentioned that I probably wouldn't be back. I still want to fish that lake. So, I was saying maybe 2026, 2027. I will probably find myself back in this area because there's 2 things I want to do. I want to fish that third lake, but I also, as you're coming up to Shepherd Pass, there's, the fact that I found, or that we found fish in that creek has got me curious. There are some lakes that are scattered around there. I mean, there are these lakes here that we go into, but there's some other lakes that are scattered around, and it's got me curious what are in those lakes. So I think, if I'm physically able, I will definitely be making another trip into this area. How I'm going to get in, I don't know. I've been in 3 different ways so far. I've been over Cottonwood Pass, going in the Lowe Road. I've been up and over the Sketchy Pass, and then I've come up Shepherd Pass as well. There's no fun way into these lakes. So depending on 2 or 3 years from now, what kind of shape I'm in, I guess that'll determine things.
And it's a lot of fun to be able to come here and catch that species of fish.
That's interesting about your Cottonwood Lakes fishing. It sounds like fishing wasn't very good in general because Lake 3 normally produces. Lake 3's got a lot of fish in it. Hey, Tenkara Atari. Getting back to Cottonwood for a minute, it is, I guess it's a good and bad thing that they've changed the season. But I used to really like to go up there in July and fish up there, and even, I didn't really fish the lower lakes so much. I always spent time at the upper lakes, but that creek coming out of 4, which you can now is no longer legal to fish in July. That was always really good. I think in September it's probably too low to be that good. So here, we're going into that Colorado Cut Lake, and it's sketchy going in, and it's funny because Roger and I went in about 10 years ago, and he was like, "Oh, I'm not coming back in here," and he had forgotten that he had said that. So I was able to convince him to come back in, and frankly, I had a harder time this time than he did for sure.
That was right in front of him.
And it's a shame that we weren't able to spend more time here because,
That's a good fish.
That is a good
Probably
fish.
go
It's a good Colorado cut.
10 inches.
Few places in the state where you can catch them, but
Here's
I've
the
actually
one that
caught
I've been
bigger
waiting
fish
for.
on the other side of the lake.
This is the one I wanted. That is a beautiful fish. Probably 11 or 12 inches. It's like a nice fish. Now that may just be the fish that I caught. Let's see. Let's throw this out there and see.
Now you're noticing that I'm fishing
Oh yeah, good fish.
a graphite rod, which I typically don't do.
Nice fish.
Yeah, it's it's an interesting trek into the basin for sure.
That is a nice Colorado cutthroat.
So I guess that's the end of day 7. I don't know what to say. We made good time getting back to the main trail. Had a pleasant time after that first pitch on the PCT down to Tyndall, and then actually the climb from Tyndall to Shepherd was pretty nice as well. Met a lot of good folks today. That was pleasant, and then we took that near disastrous climb down into the Colorado Cut Basin. I'd forgotten how bad it was, and it's funny because Roger had said earlier that the theme of this trip was falling because we've both fallen so much. I mean, I fell twice today coming down from the lake, and and then the way I tried to lower my backpack safely, but didn't take into account the pitch.
I'm glad this will be helpful.
The fact that it would roll. So fortunately, it didn't roll any further than it did. Nothing was damaged that I can see. Probably would have been better to throw it on that smaller ledge, but I hadn't really thought about that. Or the first time we came here, I basically, Roger and I were closer together when we were hiking, I think. And I think what we ended up doing was I went down first, and then he lowered the pack.
Yeah, our first time in here, we spent 3 days in here, and so we got to fish one of the lakes pretty thoroughly and did pretty well. Yeah, I guess the west side does have some big fish lakes, but they're all lower elevation, so that makes sense, right? I mean, you've got a longer growing season. You've probably got more bugs, but there are a lot of big fish lakes in on the east side. I mean, and I guess in this when I think big fish here, I'm thinking up to 25 inches. I mean, they do exist. They don't fish as well maybe as they used to, but they're out there, and you can see some of the some of the videos I have on the channel, you can see I can, on the east side, pulling up some big fish. Yeah, Shepherd Pass. It's funny because when you tell the rangers that you're going Shepherd Pass, every single one of them to a person will ask you if you're familiar with the pass and tell you it's sketchy. And there are very few places where I've seen that happen. But every time we mention Shepherd Pass, they're just like, oh, it's sketchy. I'm like, yeah, we know it's sketchy. But I mean, I've never done Army Pass, Old Army Pass, but I've got to imagine that Old Army Pass is so much worse. So it's just a funny thing. We coming in when we got the permits, we were told how sketchy it was. We ran into a couple rangers during the trip. I don't remember if I included them in the videos or not. I think I mentioned them, but we coming out of the first lake, we actually just randomly met this ranger, and he probably thought that we were trying to avoid him because we had accidentally gotten off trail right where he was. But he warned us. And then as we were leaving the day, well, was it this day? No, it was the day before this. No, it was. Let me think about that. No, it was day 5. When we left on day 5, there's a ranger station that we stopped at, and I talked to the ranger for like 20 minutes, and yeah, he was warning us about it. He was really cool. Gave me some great beta on the lake because his wife is a bighorn sheep biologist, and she spent a lot of time in that area. So that was really cool
To me, but that was 10 years ago, and frankly, on that slope, I wasn't confident that wasn't confident that I was going to be able to have him lower the backpacks the way that we did before. But I did have the paracord, so if I had waited for him and we had lowered both backpacks down with the paracord like we did his, then everything would have been okay. And everything was okay anyway.
I decided to leave my rolling backpack out of the year-round summary. So here I'm just explaining how I was a knucklehead and was impatient, didn't wait for Roger, lowered my backpack by myself, not keeping in mind the fact that I was lowering it to a portion of the climb that was slanted. And when I lowered the backpack and then freed the rope, my pack rolled. And if it hadn't hit a rock, it probably would have rolled off of ledge and ended up, halfway to our campsite. But fortunately, nothing broke.
Nothing was damaged, and it's a lesson learned. I need to.
Are you guys hearing the video okay?
Through the situations a little bit better than I did.
And is the video quality better than last time?
We got in, I don't know, 30 minutes of fishing, maybe. Fishing was fairly fast and furious.
Great, thank you. That's good to hear.
Really,
yeah, Old Army Pass. People die up there like regularly. It's not a surprise when people die up there.
Hopefully without incident. We'll probably fish for like an hour first, and then make a climb out. My water filter is absolutely not working anymore. It's been slowly getting worse and worse every day of the trip. Yesterday was bad, but I was able to get it to start pumping. And today I just couldn't get it to pump anything. And not sure what it is. It's probably something simple like a really old O-ring. But it's a good time for me to start looking at other options. I mean, that was 15-year-old technology, and I'm sure there's better stuff out there now.
September 6th, 2024.
Yeah, so I was rambling there about my water filter. I've had the same water filter for a very long time, and it finally kind of went kaput. So I adopted a new one this year. It seems to be working pretty well, except you'll see later it broke on the Kennedy Lake strip. To the headwaters of the Kern. You mean like Golden Trout Creek and that sort of thing?
The last day of our 8 days in Golden Trout country, except today we're in sort of the adopted range of the Colorado cutthroat. It's our last day, and so we are leaving today. We started our trek out yesterday, and we decided to spend the night on a lake that's known for Colorado cuts. So we caught some cuts last night. Going to take maybe 30 minutes and just take a look and see what's going on at the lake this morning. And then we have
no, it's not on my radar.
When I say
I have
out of here,
I have wanted to go back to the Kern because I want to catch some little Kern Goldens. So yeah, there's creeks there where I can get little Kern Goldens, and I've been thinking about doing that. I was going to do that last year and just didn't feel like doing the drive down the Fresno, but maybe I'll do that this year. I'm gonna have to do it during the week though, I think.
this is what I'm talking about. We've got to climb up and out of this morning. I figured I'd come in here today, see if there are any cruising fish. Try to throw a dry fly at them.
Yeah, I'm thinking about going back over Duck Pass this year. Roger and I have been talking about where we want to go,
Nice.
and
For date.
that is one of the options. I'd actually like to spend 8 days over there.
That looks like it might be a bigger fish right there in the inlet.
Yeah, so I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna hit that again.
That looks like it might be a bigger fish right there in the inlet.
So Roger had been fishing to this fish earlier. He had been on this other bank over here, and the fish is like right here under this rock.
It's a nice representation.
Yeah, I got a gravity filter and it broke. It's still workable. It's
Attempting to stay longer.
It's a filter that has a known issue, and I was trying to be careful enough that it wouldn't break, and I wasn't. Momentary lapse, and it broke, but it still works. Figured out what I'm going to do in terms of getting it to stay up and filter water, but we'll see what happens this season.
And too bad we can't. We're going to try to climb to the waterfall, and then it looks like there's.
Now this is a lot sketchier than it looks on.
And that'll avoid us from having to go back this way.
Cool. My friend Emery fishes the Kern a lot. That was slippery. That was so slippery.
That's up.
Now, the funny thing here, check out Roger's footwear. Roger's got these Skechers on, and he absolutely loved them. You don't think of Skechers in terms of backpacking footwear, but he absolutely loved them, and they worked fine for him.
It's slippy.
Yeah, it definitely is.
Starting our descent down Shepherd Pass.
So here I was trying to give a perspective of what it looked like from my vantage point, as well as what Roger was seeing. And I tried to match up where I was on both cameras. So what you're seeing in the big screen is my perspective at that point in the small screen. Oh yeah, Crocs are great.
Campground.
Yeah, if you're going up Shepherd Pass,
Shepherd Pass Trail.
Roger and I have come up this pass in a single day, and then we went down into the base, which is a tough ask. But there are quite a few little campgrounds, sort of halfway along this trail that would be good to hang out at. I mean, they're really sort of nice.
There seem to be lots of campsites in this area.
No, I think forestry does it. I don't know. I don't know how much maintenance it gets, but it seemed to get a little.
I don't know where it is on the map or what it's called. So we are officially at the trailhead.
Yeah. So in this review, I didn't include the full trek back to the car, just because it's a long trek and it's there's really not much. I mean, it is beautiful, but it just sort of drones on. One of the things that I would say about Shepherd Pass is don't take beginners up Shepherd Pass. Saw quite a few folks that were obviously beginners that were coming up. I mean, folks can do it, I guess, if they've got, the mental fortitude, but the lower section of the trail is kind of sketchy, just because the stream's washed out and you're crossing back and forth. And, then that upper section is sketchy too. And, we ran into some people later in the day than they probably should have been attempting the climb. But once you get past that first, I don't know, maybe the first 3 miles, then it's okay. And if you've got, if you've got the mental fortitude to get up to one of those higher campsites, then I guess it's fine. But I would not recommend it for beginners. If you're looking for an easy way to get into the backcountry, Cottonwood Pass is definitely the way to go.
And it's got notices about the Sierra Bighorn, which we did not see.
And I guess I should say Duck Pass isn't so bad either. I think Duck Pass has a worse reputation than it actually is. It's really not that bad.
Shepherd Pass down here. And this is where we are. And so that ends day 8. It also ends, a great 8 days in the mountains with a great partner, Roger. This is probably, the third 8-day trip that we've done in the last 10 years? Yeah, this is probably the third 8-day trip that we've done in the last 10 years. It was a humbling experience. I don't know. I did not prepare properly for this trip.
Yeah, so here's where I'm going to talk about how I just really didn't pay much attention to my pack weight. But I don't weigh deep anymore. I mean, I used to at one point. Roger still kind of does. But, once I get up to maybe my mid thighs, I just don't care to. I don't like to really chase fish anymore. And so, if the fish are just, they're way out in the middle of the lake and I have to wait out to get to them, I'm just not really interested. Same thing. If the fish aren't really active, then I'm just not interested.
I guess I just had other things going on, other things on my mind. And a little bit of hubris because of my running fitness right now. I had 2 bad days out of 8. It's kind of like a stage race where, you go day after day. You kind of want to have good days. And that first day was a bad day, which I don't think I'd felt that bad since that last day that we came out of Bear Creek. That was bad. So
yeah. So I've never been a Paiute that I can think of. At least, well, did I come? No, yeah, I don't think I have. Because I've come into that area from, I went into Evolution Valley once, and I came in from the west side. I came in from Florence. Yeah, you should convince your girlfriend to catch some Goldens. I took my wife when we were dating. I think we were still dating. Early season, I took my wife to catch fish at the South Fork of Cottonwood Creek. And back then, the regulations weren't written very clearly. And so it wasn't clear to me that it actually wasn't open until July 1st. So I was like, okay, cool. And it was a low snow year, and we were able to get in there. So we drove up to the Cottonwood Lakes trailhead, and we hiked in and we fished the South Fork of Cottonwood Creek. She caught her first golden. That was basically the first and only time she ever went fishing with me. But on the way back, we ran into Fish and Game, and I had a discussion with the Fish and Game ranger, and the Fish and Game ranger agreed to me because I showed her. I'm like, look, I went through the regs, and it's showing me a Cottonwood Creek here in this county and a Cottonwood Creek in another county, and she agreed with me that it wasn't clear, so I didn't get fined or anything, fortunately. Yeah, Florence to Evolution Valley. That was my first trip into the High Sierra. So I grew up on the East Coast, and through most of my college years, I'd been to Yosemite, and just started going to the Eastern Sierra. And my friend Mike was in the Peace Corps with a guy who had friends, and every year they would go on this quest for golden trout. And so one year I went in with them, and we went in Florence Lake, hiked into, I forget how many days we spent, but we hiked into Evolution Valley, fished up there for quite a bit. I caught, believe it or not, 100 fish in a day. I was still a beginner fly fisher, and I had altitude sickness that day, so I stuck around at camp, and we had camped on Evolution Creek. And so I put a dry fly on. I had nothing to do but just cast a dry fly to 4 or 5, lucky if I got 6-inch golden trout all day. And that's all I did all day. And I ended up with 107 trout or something ridiculous. Not anything that would pique my interest today. But back then, when I was like, okay, I'm going to go on this creek and I'm just going to practice my casting, because I was brand new to fly casting. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to practice all these casts that I've been watching on videos, reach mends and all this other stuff. And yeah, so that's what I did all day. I don't have any videos from Evolution Valley. This was probably, I want to say it was 1989, but I don't think it was. I think it was probably 1992. And so, yeah, no video. I do have a couple pictures, but nothing that would really help you. You'd be down for going into Evolution, Rod? Is that what you're saying? Yeah, we could do that.
And then today, the first day going over Cottonwood Pass, no issues there. You have a bad day, you have a bad day. There's nothing, it's pretty benign. But this morning, having a bad day and feeling weak, trying to come out of that basin, that could have been a real problem.
Yeah, exactly. It's funny because I tell people that and people don't believe me, but yeah, I mean, it is very doable in that creek because there's a huge fish population, and as long as you're getting a decent drift, your fly cannot not help but go, drift over a fish, at least in some of the areas. But here where I'm talking about going into Bear Creek, so Roger and I did another trip, and I don't have any, in fact, I don't think I've ever written about this. I was writing a book, and so I had saved this trip for that book. So I think I have it written out, but I never published it on my website or anything like that. But Roger and I went into the headwaters of Bear Creek one year, and, we fished all the famous golden trout lakes up there, Sally Keys and all the rest of them. And going in, Roger had a really bad day going up to Sally Keys Lake from Florence. I actually had to like carry some of his gear going in. But then 8 days later on the way out, I obviously didn't eat enough food. And the reverse happened. He was carrying my gear as we were trying to get out, and we were going down most of the way. So one of these days we'll probably go back there. I do want to go back up to Bear Creek, but I want to go up via Edison as opposed to Florence. And maybe one day I'll publish that story.
I also learned a lot, about my actual hiking in the mountains. Typically I used to feel like I did for running once every hour. But, some of the last couple of days, I kind of addressed them, or I kind of approached them as, just sort of my, how I would if I was exercising. So typically when I'm backpacking, I'll have breakfast, we'll go do whatever hike we need to do, and blah, we're done. When I exercise, I always do that fasted. So the last 3 or 4 days, I did everything fasted and actually felt great. And then instead of fueling every 60 minutes, I was fueling every 75 or every 90.
Yeah, I've never
folks,
spent much time trying to fish Florence.
September 13th, Friday the 13th, and I am outside of Mammoth Lakes. You read that title right. I am doing Mount Whitney.
So this is the Mount Whitney trip that I took with Rod and Mike, who I don't know. Rod's here in the chat. I don't know if Mike is still here.
Now, those that know me, subscribers, know that I hike and backpack to fish, and I'm not a peak bagger. But when a friend's got a permit to summit Whitney, you don't refuse. So, I'm treating it like any other hike. Those guys came out like 3 or 4 days ago, to get some proper acclimatization. I did not have that luxury. So we're going in just after midnight tonight, and I am driving up same day.
Oh, hey, Ed. How you doing? Yeah, I saw you had sent me a text. I hadn't had a chance to read it.
505 feet.
Okay, here we are. We're all meeting. I guess there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 of us. 11. I count myself.
You want to grab it now?
Yeah, grab it now.
Yeah, so Mike's brother had put this trip together, and I forget how many of us there were, but there was a fairly large group. He had grabbed a bunch of permits to go up Whitney, and just opened it up to friends and family. And I was fortunate enough that Mike asked me to go along. And this is us getting ready at when did we leave? We leave at 1 a.m. But this is us getting ready to start the trek. I have fished Oregon. I went up to Portland a long time ago, and I fished some coastal cut streams there. No, I'm not. Like I said, I'm not a peak bagger, so that kind of stuff really doesn't, just doesn't float my boat. Unless there are fish up there, I typically don't do it. I do want to do this trek again because there are fish up there, so I want to get up there this year. I'm going to let this play. Forgive me for a second. I'm going to go get some cold water because for some reason it's gotten really hot down here and I need something to cool me off.
Some folks have done this before, some folks haven't. Whitney Trail.
So we're an hour in and we're taking a break. We've gone about 1,000 feet, 1.75 miles in that first hour. I've separated myself a bit from the others, mainly just to keep my own pace. If you've ever hiked with me, I'm a slow hiker. Hopefully I'm going the right way. I think I'm going to be good up to about 10,000 feet, and then I'm going to slow down. So go catch up with me. I've never been this
this high. So I'm feeling pretty good though. A lot better than I normally would at sort of 9.5. Entering the Whitney zone, special permit.
Sorry about that.
All hikers.
Not quite sure why it's so hot in here, but it has gotten hot. Or I'm having a hot flash.
Probably about 12,700 feet right now, which would officially make this the highest I've ever been. Entering Sequoia National Park, Trail Crest, and John Muir Trail, pets and firearms prohibited. Okay, so from here I know there's a right-hand turn that I need to take, so I need to be on the lookout for that. Cold and breezy over here, and I guess we're going down to go up.
Yeah, so I'm looking out off of that ledge. I'm basically looking at where we were backpacking earlier that month. I mean, all of this back up in here, over, on the other side of this ridge and up in here, that's all we're traveling.
Folks are dumping their gear and their packs and stuff. I'm a glutton for punishment, so
Yeah, I don't know much about
yeah,
Oregon fishing.
don't drop.
One of the things that I do want to do is I want to head out to Colorado and catch some Colorado cuts.
Almost an hour. Still not near the top.
Yeah, I've never been interested in bagging Langley. I mean, I've been there. I've been to Cottonwood Lakes plenty of times when there are folks doing it, and it just sounds like mini Everest, right? You get up there, it just sounds like there's a line of people waiting to try to sit on Langley. If I had to do it again, well, if we do it again, we'll probably just take the PCT. I don't see any need to. I mean, the sketchy passes saves you a lot of time. But if I do it in 2026, I'll be 60, and I mentioned it. I guess I didn't put it in this video, but in the series, I had mentioned that I probably hadn't fallen as much ever as I had in that 8 days that we did backpacking, and Roger and I both fell a lot. And I know for me, I know it's my eyes. I know it's the whole depth perception thing. So yeah, I mean, at 60, I don't think I want to go over that pass, but, and the Roger's not fond of doing stuff like that. So, and he's usually my partner in crime. So I would imagine we'd do the PCT again. Maybe we wouldn't stop at that first lake. Maybe we would. I would like to fish that first lake longer, so maybe we would, if we made it we could still make it an 8-day trip, fish that first lake, stay there for a full day, get to the other set of lakes for the same amount of time, but make sure to get to the upper lake and then head out towards the pass and do some exploring over by the pass. We could absolutely do that in 7 or 8 days, and that would be a pretty killer trip. Heading from the back to back, yeah. Whitney can be pretty brutal. Sure. Yeah, it's not a race, it's a marathon. And as you get older, it's a lot. That's the one thing that you keep. You lose your top end, but you gain your endurance. So certainly. Endurance isn't the problem. It's the coordination, it's the balance, going down that pass. How long have I been fishing with Roger? I'm going to guess that it's maybe 15 years. It's got to be close to that. Might be 12, probably 15. Frankly, I'd have to go back and look at my website to tell. I mean, the way that Roger and I met, Back in the day, I had a website. I still have a website, highcountryflyfisher.com. And I put the site up, I think it was in 92. And so there was a year where Roger and I were fishing the same locations, but we were doing it like a week apart. So I would go someplace and then he would go like the week later. And then, he would go someplace and then a week later I would go. And it was just purely coincidental. But we started corresponding via email, and then, Vita and I go up to Hot Creek Ranch every year. And so he was going to be in the Eastern Sierra that same weekend. And we said, hey, why don't you come, join us at the ranch? So, it's been a while. I'm really bad with time. So anytime you ask me anything, it's like, well, it's 10 or 15 years. It could be 20 years. I would guess that it was, for all I know, I'll have to look, but it's definitely close to 15. I haven't heard of that for the eyes. What does it do? Coordination and time to recoup. Yeah, exactly. Folks, continue to enjoy my website. Thanks. Yeah, it's too bad that I don't post on it anymore. I mean, frankly, I sort of lost my writer's voice, that internal monologue that would help me put those stories together. I do have one that I found last year that I should probably post. It was one that I had written and I never posted. It was like halfway finished, but it was still, for my website, I think, a three-page story was a long story. And I think I had not finished it, and it was like 2 or 3 pages. So I should probably put that up. My favorite brookie lake. I will take you there, but I will not. I will not mention it on the live feed. But there are videos of it on the channel. But I'll be happy to take you there if you ever want to go. And you've been on it. It's cool. Okay, back to Whitney. There's the obligatory Whitney photo.
So I made it roughly, I think it was 8 hours, 40 minutes. You can't even see the sketchiness from here.
Ah.
I mean, that whole...
Yeah, glaucoma is something I need to worry about.
Sketchy.
And I did not know that. So I'll definitely look into that. Because I do, we have a history of glaucoma family, so I do need to be careful of that.
Okay.
Yep, there are a lot of lakes. I mean, you could spend your entire life not going to the same lake twice.
Wow. Look at those switchbacks. I had no idea this was here this morning. Gee, what an amazing day.
Right.
I don't think I could have picked a better day to summit Mount Whitney.
It's Friday.
Yeah, it really was an amazing day, and I didn't talk too much about it at the end because I still get kind of self-conscious about filming around other people, and so, well, that's good to know. I mean, it's good to know that they are kind of similar. Ed's saying that my writer's voice and my videographer's voice are somewhat similar, and it's funny because back in the day when I would be on my trips, I would sort of write portions of the stories in my head as I was going along. Have not done Mineral King. I definitely, that's definitely one of those things that's out there that I've always been interested in doing. But in terms of Whitney, I didn't talk too much about it because I do get a little self-conscious on camera when there's lots of people, and I was back down towards the trailhead, and of course there are lots of people at Whitney. But I think we ended up on probably a special day on Whitney just because of the, first of all, nothing happened. Nobody got hurt. but the weather was absolutely amazing. And I've talked to so many people that have had, such bad luck trying to get into Whitney and bad weather. And it was amazing. Have you any experience with hyperlight mountain gear? Let's see. Let me think. I'll have to think about that one. You see a lot of YouTubers where you go. Okay. We'll go ahead and start. So this video, just to lay the background for this, because I haven't published this. I actually haven't finished this yet. This was the Mammoth Trail Fest 50K that I did. And just to give you guys some background, I was training for 100K that in Oakland in October. And so I sort of worked all this backpacking and peak bagging and this race into that training. And so, we did the 8 days in Golden Trout country, and then I did Whitney, and I was feeling great. I mean, at Whitney, I was really surprised because I typically, don't do very well above like 10,000, 11,000 feet. I can typically feel it, but we got up to that first pass in Whitney, and I wasn't really feeling it. I mean, I was just sort of, and you'll notice, and I mentioned this in the video, you'll notice that I was by myself in Whitney, and that was basically because I was scared of, being the guy to keep everybody back. And so when we started out, the pace was actually too fast for me, and I got a little concerned, and so the group started stopping. And then as the group started stopping, I don't like to stop much when I hike. And so as the group started stopping, there was one time when the group stopped, I was at the back, and the group stopped, and I hiked through the group while everybody was still sitting. And then by the time the group was ready to get up, everybody started getting up to walk, and I was in the front, and I was behind the guy that was setting the pace. And he was setting a fairly quick pace for me. And then at one point he just sort of turned to me and said, you go ahead. And I didn't really, I was like, okay, I don't know why you want me to go ahead, but okay, that's fine. So I went ahead, and behind me, the group stopped. And I was like, well, I'll just keep going because, they've been stopping and I've been catching up, and they've been stopping and I've been catching up. They'll just catch up to me. And eventually that just didn't happen. And I found that the higher we went up to a point, I was actually feeling a lot better than I had expected. Fast forward a week, and I'm in Mammoth, and I'm at 8,000 feet, and I am absolutely feeling it. I just, the wheels came off, and whatever acclimatization that I had from that 8 days 2 weeks earlier, I had, or maybe it was 3 weeks at this point, it was completely gone. So I haven't published this. I'm still working on this. Frankly, running videos aren't the most popular thing on my channel, but it's part of who I am and what I do, so I still put them out there.
September 20th, and I am currently in Mammoth Lakes getting ready for the Mammoth Trail Fest. This will be like the third straight week that I've been in the Eastern Sierra.
Yeah, so I didn't mention, I mentioned on the last live that I did, I mentioned Mike's video, but so Mike is on here. Mike's the one that invited me, and the time before this that he attempted to summit, he and his brother and their group actually ended up saving the life, at least one life, if not multiple lives, of folks that were attempting Whitney. They ran into a group of folks that were out of sorts and maybe a little ill-prepared, and they helped get them down to safety, get Inyosar in so that they could be choppered out. And at least that one person, the Inyosar person, said that she would have absolutely died. So I'll link in the description of this Mike's video. He's got a video about the whole thing, and if you haven't watched it, you should actually go do that, because it's an eye opener. And the eye opener for me on that video, I've always hiked with the spot, and I've always had a plan on how to use the spot. But the eye opener for me in that video was the fact that They really needed to be able to communicate with InyoStar to facilitate the rescue effectively. If they didn't have that, it would have been a whole different ordeal. They would have had a hard time. They probably, I mean, Mike can probably speak to this, but, if they didn't have the ability to text InyoStar, they probably would have tried to get her down a little bit and have InyoStar rescue them wherever they ended up being, as opposed to being able to say, meet us at this spot. So anyway, on with the running part, though.
I unfortunately have not retained any of the acclimation that I felt last week at Whitney. I'm breathing hard up here and I'm feeling uncomfortable. Okay, so pretty typical. What I expect to happen is everybody's going to go out past fish. I'm going to hang back, get dropped on the first hill, and then just do my thing.
Okay, we're coming down on Twin Lakes.
Thanks for the congratulations. I haven't used Hyperlink.
Last year, I was there.
Historically, I don't think they have as much. They don't have as much support as I need.
Presumably on the same pace. Okay, leaving Horseshoe Meadow at 11:41.
Yeah, Mike's saying that the Whitney day was perfect.
2 hours to get up to the summit. You can see we came that way and then went back through that forest. Went up over that bluff. You can see the trail on the left-hand side.
So topo maps, I have the Nat Geo. Here it is, right here. Actually, I've got this. It's an old Nat Geo CD-ROM that put out in, I don't know. Maybe it was probably the mid 1990s or maybe the early 2000s. Probably the former. And yeah, it's got to be the former. It's topo for Windows 95, 98, and 2000. Okay, so probably the early 2000s. But it's it's basically a CD-ROM, and I plug it in, and I can print on waterproof paper. I can print the maps that I need, and then on my phone, I use the Topo app. So I typically have. So here, the Topo Maps app, I use that. I typically have a paper map with me as well as the phone. If it's someplace that I haven't been, and it's a bigger area, very rarely do I have the park maps, but sometimes I do carry them. But, in places like the Emigrant, I rarely, if I'm going to Emigrant Lake, I won't have a map on me because I know it. But those are the two that I use. Charger and phone died so couldn't communicate with SAR. Okay. FFTS is a great source of information. FFTS is what? I'm not hitting on the acronym. So Mike's saying that the ability to text directly from your GPS device saved her life. Yeah. I mean that was my takeaway from your video. Oh, Fly Fish the Sierra. Yeah, does he keep it updated though? Does he keep it updated? I've always had the impression that it's been the same forever. Is that not the case? Fly Fishing the Sierra is a great resource, that's for sure. More detailed info. Yeah, I mean, if you're looking for, if you're looking for in-depth data on, fish size and all that sort of stuff, for sure. Yeah, for sure. But is it as extensive? It's funny. I only go there when I'm looking for specific areas, but I haven't taken the fishing guide and taken the website and compared the two and see if does he cover everything that the guide covers?
came down all the way around, came over to Horseshoe, and then up, and then up and over like that. So I'm at the 6-hour mark. Pretty sure last year that actually put me at the summit. That's where
Okay.
we're
Okay.
going. Gotta go up and around this. Got an hour to do it. 211. Mammoth Mountain, 11,053 feet. Hi, Joe.
There's my wife, Vita. She's my
through the
staunchest
station,
supporter.
217. Gonna down some Pop-Tarts and just chill on this hill on the way down.
Gotcha. Yeah, like I say, I only look when I need to find a specific lake.
If Sunto was accurate, and the aid station should be about 1.5 miles. I'm really struggling right now. That was so hard. I must, I should be in better shape than I was last year. Maybe I'm just overtrained. I don't know.
Yep, every year I'm there for sure.
So,
And I signed up again for this year.
11 hours, 17 minutes, 45 seconds. I finished at 6:47 p.m. And that was a lot harder than I was expecting. I've been training for a race that's next week, a longer race that's next week, and
Aid stations are typically 5 or 6 miles apart. They're not too far. Yeah, Cutter's Guide is a great resource. I've got both. I've got the original and the reprint. I've also got, so if anybody here fishes the Immigrant, well, I'll let you guys know in general. I've also got on my website the old fish and game guides. So back in the day, like in the 50s and 60s, Fish and Game used to put out these little pamphlets on each of the areas. And in that pamphlet, and I still refer to them, and the great thing about that pamphlet is it talks about spawning conditions and it talks about lake depth. So, the information about the fish is not going to be current, but if you look through those pamphlets, and there's a pamphlet there on Mineral King. I think I have it on my site. I think I have the Mineral King pamphlet on my site. It talks about the lakes, it talks about spawning habitat, it talks about the depths. And, that's important stuff because, regardless of the information that you get, information is wrong. Somebody might go to a lake and say, it's completely, it's completely fished out, or it's been gill netted and there's no fish in there. And then somebody might come along, a day later and catch a boatload of fish. So I always like to try to see for myself, to see if there are fish there. And I think those are sort of underrated resources.
So I've been putting in, 30 and 40 mile runs. And I've been spending a lot of time this month at altitude. And so I thought I'd be a lot stronger than I was. I told my brother earlier in the year that I'm either going to be flying in September or I'm going to be dying. And, when I went up Whitney, I felt pretty good. But today, yeah. And I just.
So I just put in the chat the link to those fishing guides.
2 hours into the race, I just felt like I'd been running for like 6. It was ridiculous. I think it's October 14th, 2024, and I'm with Rod from Rod, and we're headed up to Kennedy Lake. Just came to the revelation that I left my sleeping pad at home, so not quite sure what I'm going to do for bedding when I get up to to Kennedy. It's about 40 degrees right now. We are expecting it to drop well into the 30s tonight. Okay, we took about a 20-minute lunch break, and now we're heading to the campsite. Trail goes out that way, but we're going to head out.
Yeah, the bog
towards
trip. That's for
we're going to head
sure.
over towards the creek. There's another trail by the creek that should take us to the campsite.
Yeah, I would agree.
Campsite.
You know, if
It's over here.
if there's a way in and a way out of a lake,
Creek,
it's hard to
on the
get rid of
trail,
those fish.
but there aren't going to be that many people coming. There's a fire.
So Kennedy Lake, you know, I've been to Kennedy Lake a few times, and it's always been earlier in the season, and I've always been curious about, you know, how active are these brown trout later in the season. Now, I still don't think that we were there maybe late in the season enough for them for the big fish, the really big fish, to be super active. But you know, we did catch quite a few fish, and we did see some decent fish in the creek. So yeah, I think I'll be coming back again this year. Maybe a little bit longer, maybe spending a little bit more time on the creek to see if some of those bigger fish show. But this was a cool little campsite. You know, I've been up here 3 times before this, and each time I've camped someplace different. So it was kind of cool to see this one. And Rod calls it the bog trip, and that's because if you've ever been to Kennedy, there are springs all around the lake, and there's a hillside, and so the entire thing is basically a bog. And one of the things about going in later in the season that I was hoping that later in the season it would be a whole lot drier, and that's what I was counting on. And so I didn't bring my waders. That was a mistake.
Okay. Decent spot over here and over there. First night, I'm going to risk sleeping on the ground without a pad, without any boughs, or anything like that. So no insulation, and we'll see how it goes. It should get down to like the 30s today. My bag is rated into the 20s. I've got plenty of extra layers. So it's 2 o'clock. I got my tarp up finally. I've got my emergency space blanket, and I put that down underneath me. I'm not confident of fishing right now. I'm not seeing any fish, and so I'm just going to go back to camp and revisit this tomorrow. Tomorrow's another day. We'll have sun.
Yeah, that first day I didn't pick up that many fish. Rod picked up a bunch, but most of that afternoon I went fishless. You can confirm that the Rocky Basin lakes are fishless. Okay, cool. Thanks for that. That's good to know.
We'll able to see fish. So just as I'm going back to camp, got some small fish that have started rising in here. Well, some small fish rising in here. So I just took my nymph, threw it on, and I've actually had a couple good strikes from decent fish.
Yeah, so the fishing here was interesting. So, and maybe it had to do with the time of day and what insects were actually showing in the lake. But in the evening on our first day, I had to speed up my retrieve to catch fish. On the next day, I had to basically just crawl super slow in the lake. And so it was, you know, it's a good example of, you know, when you're going to a place, trying different retrieves, you know. And what I typically do is when I fish the clock, you know, I'll start either left or right, and I'll just make like 6 casts going across, and I usually do it at different depths. Not so much retrieves, but it is important to modify your retrieve. And there've been a couple instances over the past couple years where the retrieve has been the most, like the retrieve speed has been very important. Typically, I would say probably depth is the most important because you want to make sure you're presenting your fly to the fish. But here, the speed was important. Somebody had asked me about Tahoe a little while ago. I plan to be fishing near Tahoe actually twice this year. We'll see. One's a big cutthroat lake, and then the other one is a big golden lake. But I was at that big golden lake a couple of years ago, and I wasn't catching any fish, and there was another guy that was fishing, and he was just killing them. And so I watched him, and he was just stripping back as fast as he could. I started doing that, and as soon as I started doing that, I started picking up fish. So, retrieve speed is something that shouldn't be underestimated, especially if you're not catching fish in the backcountry. And people think, backcountry fishing can be, really, really easy. And I guess it can be, but catching larger fish, can be challenging.
Let's see what happens. Okay. A couple fish over here.
It's not a spring creek. Well, actually, that's not true. It is okay. So it is a freestone that is made up of springs as well as runoff. So over here on this side of the bank, there are springs. They're not like huge springs, but there's enough to feed the lake. And then up at the front of the lake, what is it? Big Sally, Big Sandy. There's a big mountain pass up there. Water comes in from there. So yeah, I mean it is somewhat spring fed. The longest rod that I have a 9-foot 5-weight that I used to use for nymphing. It's a what is it? Fisher G40, I think it's called. I don't use it for lakes. I like to fish a 4-weight on lakes. And no, I've not thought of getting a single-handed spay. Well, actually, no. Yes, single-handed spay line. Yes, and actually, I got one, and I can't remember. Was it a Rio? I think I might have picked up the Rio. I'll have to look. If you, you know what, I'll have to go back and watch one of my videos. So when I went into Paiute Canyon, that first or second day, I was fishing a single-handed spay with, I forget what rod it was, and I actually found it was too heavy for the rod that I was using. So I haven't done any more work with it. I haven't done any more experimentation with that. I probably should go down to the casting ponds and try a bunch of different rods to see what it works with. But it didn't work well with the rod that I was fishing on that day, and I haven't fished it since. Yeah, so earlier, well, yeah, I guess, yeah, they were basically they were pretty high up in the water column. Let's see. I'm looking into the Commando single hand. You tried the Rio and it was too heavy. Yeah, that's what I found. And I don't remember if I was fishing the 4-weight or if I had one of my 5-weight lines. I suspect that I probably had one of my 5-weight rods. I suspect that I probably did, but I'll have to go back and watch that video. I think I probably say in the video, but I may have cut it out. I mean, it wasn't really working well for me. I may have cut it out completely.
Let's see if I can get their attention without spooking them. Got his attention. And nothing. There we go.
Yeah, and you can see the retrieve wasn't terribly fast, but it was what I would typically do.
So, not going to get skunked tonight. Happy to see that. But yeah, the fish is twice as big as I thought he was. Yeah, let's see if I can get another. I sped up the retrieve a little bit, but I wasn't paying a whole lot of attention, unfortunately. So, faster retrieve. Okay, faster retrieve confirmed.
Calabatus, nicely.
You can see how
positioned
dirty my
in
feet are.
its jaws. Looks almost identical to the fish I had before.
So finally, I found some fish that I could fish to and found a retrieve that works.
There is a fairly
Ops
large
Commando.
fish
I'll have to take a look at that.
right out there.
Do they
He
have
keeps
four
hitting the
weights?
surface pretty hard. I've got a larger Calabatus nymph on now. There we go. And well, there you go. Something big over there. Oh, is it headed down?
Yeah, I wish I was able to get this on film. There was a huge fish there. I mean, I don't ever remember seeing a fish push that much water on a lake. I mean, it was just ridiculous. And yeah, I kind of had hoped that I had caught it on film, but you obviously can't see it. But it was pushing a lot of water.
Downstream? Maybe it's headed downstream. It just pushed a whole lot of water. No, there it is. You see that? Oh my! I don't think I can cast that far. There, that's a decent cast. There we go. Oh.
And one of the things I need to do is I need to make a new rod, and I've been saying that for a long time. But this rod that I'm fishing here, I think I finished it like 15 years ago, and I've been fishing it consistently. Like that has been my fishing rod for the last 15 years, and it is, it's a cane rod and it's fatigued. So I definitely need to make a new one.
Oh man. So rod's set up in
Cool.
A-frame, which is kind of cool. That should be fairly warm.
Rod, did you have any critters coming in when you were under those trees? Because that kind of looks like a critter place. I don't remember seeing it when we were there. You mean at the picnic area at Hat Creek? You mean the at the parking lot at the powerhouse? To be perfectly honest, or do you mean the one right next to the road, the one downstream next to the road? Frankly, it's been a long time since I've been to Hat Creek. I used to go to Hat Creek too a lot. I like to fish green drakes there, actually. Would I consider wrapping a rod for a subscriber? If I get back into rod making, sure. But I haven't made a rod in a very long time. And I need to make this. I've had, for at least 5 years, I've had the rod that I need to make for myself sitting on my bench, and I haven't gotten anywhere near it. So sure, if I get back into the habit of making rods, yeah, absolutely.
I'm in my shelter, and tonight's going to be an experiment. How cold am I going to get without a sleeping pad? I've got plenty of layers. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put on a silk undershirt, put a polypro shirt on top of that, and put some silk underwear on. I'm going to put some wool socks on. I'm going to put my down jacket in the bottom of my sleeping bag to keep my feet warm, and I'm going to hope that'll work. If it doesn't, then I'll put my wool shirt back on, put the polypro shirt on top of it, and I'll put this on.
You'd want it longer than 10 feet. If you're going to plan to get a bamboo rod that's over 10 feet, you're going to need to find somebody that builds hollow rods. I would not recommend a 10-foot cane rod unless it was hollow. It's just too heavy. Now here, so this is where, this night I was sleeping without a sleeping pad. It actually ended up being not a problem, really. It was a little bit uncomfortable, but I was able to shift things around a little bit, shift my body around. And then the second night, I learned to use some of my extra clothes and stuff as a pad under my chest, and so it was fine. But here you can see that that new water filter that I was talking about
on as an additional layer. And if that's not working, I'll put on my down jacket, and maybe I'll put my backpack underneath my feet. But yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, unless you're looking for like a spay rod, I would not recommend bamboo in 10 feet. I mean, I most of the rod that I'm fishing, most of the rods that I fish that are cane, even the ones that are hollow, are like, 8.3, 8.4. Not. I don't think I currently have one. Well, you know what? That Sage LL rod that I made, it might actually be 9 feet. But, I'm typically fishing like an 8-foot rod, 8 foot 3 inches, something like that.
So it's about 8 o'clock on Tuesday, and I'm finally deciding to get out of bed.
I want to come back. I want to go back this year
day.
and fish the creek more. Spend a
I
full
didn't
day
get too
fishing the
cold,
creek.
even though
Full day fishing the lake.
Rod is telling me that it's 27 degrees out right now. I didn't really get too cold until I don't know, about 4 o'clock in the morning. It's just the ground is so hard that I was twisting and turning. Like every hour, I'd get up and I'd have to switch positions. I'd sleep. I think maybe I got like 30 minutes sleep, and I'd lay there for 30 minutes and switch positions, and then 30 minutes sleep. I'm thinking that's how it went, but yeah, pretty much from 7 to 1 o'clock every hour. Yeah, I was up, and I think I may have slept between 1 and 3, or 1 and 4 rather, because I got up at 4. Having to switch to a new position. I'd been sleeping on my left side. I hadn't been able to sleep on my right side.
I don't know. I think I put a little log chopping in this. I don't think I put a whole lot.
But anyway, it was at 4 when I got cold. And that I woke up then because I was cold. My shoes are frozen.
Yeah, how crazy is that? I don't think I've ever had shoes actually freeze. I've had them have frost on them, but they got so wet the night before that I mean they were I was hitting the top of it. They were not collapsing in the slightest.
Okay, I think that small pile I've got over there and this, once I get it, will be enough for anything that we decide to do. So first things first, I'm going to break all the thin pieces into smaller pieces. Maybe we'll have a fire tonight, because that's a lot of wood. This crow makes it easy to cut up stuff that's about this size. I can't really tell, but that could be rod over there by the beach.
So here you were asking whether it was a spring creek. So you can see all this stuff here in the background. There's a creek that's right to this saddle right here. There's a creek that flows all the way down. Now that said, that creek actually starts as a spring. There's a spring right there at the trail. If you go out this way, there's a trail that actually comes over this bluff, and like Leavitt Lake is over here in the behind this hill here, and it will get you can see there's still snow up here. It does get snow runoff, but there's a spring right here. There are springs all in here. There's a spring that's coming in right here. Spring and runoff fed stream that's coming in right here. So yeah, it's kind of both.
The beach is good fishing. Well, I found the fish. Yeah, look at that.
Yeah, I don't know how well Can I see the fish in this? There is no. I cut this video at a lower resolution so that it would play a little bit better. And let me go back one.
Beach.
I think if you look real close, you'll be
Beach
able to
is good
see
fishing.
some cruising
Yeah.
fish.
Found the fish. Yeah, look at that. Okay. I guess I'm getting brushy and wet. Got
Yeah,
one.
they're there. I
Not huge.
couldn't see it in that flash, but they're there.
And I had to. That's a rainbow. What? No, it's a brown. Okay. Just the colorations, I guess. Yeah, it's a nice fish.
Yeah, that would certainly help with
Stillwater
distance,
nymph
longer rods,
no
and
action.
spay lines.
Okay, I'm into another one. Oh, this time he took the Calvados.
And this was really interesting. I was basically sight fishing here and just tossing the fly where I saw the fish and just really super slow retrieve. Just enough to keep pressure with the fly.
That might be a little better fish. Another one all about the same size. I think I'm gonna have to move on to find bigger fish. Another one on the Stillwater nymph.
And here I'm fishing a Stillwater nymph,
Definitely hardy fish.
which surprises me because typically I would fish a Calvados nymph here. I probably fished both.
Pretty hardy fish. That make him turn? No. Another one. Another one turned.
Now the Calvados nymph obviously imitates Calvados nymphs, which are big in the immigrant, especially in the spring. The Stillwater nymph is a dam imitation, and there are lots of damsels in the immigrant as well.
There we go.
Hey Emery, how you
That's
doing?
what I wanted. But yep. Oh, we got a double on. Rod's got one. I've got one.
Yeah, I don't know. Slow retrieves with small flies, yes, for sure. These are like 14s and 12s, so they're not really small. They're sort of in that in between, and so I think they're they fish well. They can fish well slow. They can fish well fast. Yeah, I know you. Yeah, so Rod skipped that entire bank, which completely surprised me because I saw him on the other end, and I was like thinking to myself, did he not see the fish in here? This place is loaded with fish. Why did he go over there? He didn't even look, huh? Yeah, they'll hit it like a streamer, sure.
Okay, good. I'm on the beach. So this is the beach section. And hopefully I'll get in some nice weed bed because almost certainly during my retrieve, I'd snag it. I'm going to come over here to this point and cast across to it. Now the water here is deeper, and I hadn't been letting it drop. I may need to do that here.
Hey, you were looking for a place to poop, okay? Okay. Yeah, Roger's big into carrying two rods as well that are set up differently. He tends to fish a sinking line more than I do. When we're at those lakes that we're at, I'll carry a sinking line just because I know those fish are deep. But typically I don't. And I could have fished a sinking line here maybe, and it may have been better. I don't know. But typically I like to just carry a floating line. Although I may have had a sinking line with me. I don't think I had two. Well, actually, we were there for 3 days. I might have had an extra rod with me. But I typically don't walk around with two. That's for sure.
Here we go.
And it's a good strategy. It's just
Let's get him out of the weeds.
it's too much of a headache for me.
Nice dark fish.
So 15-second countdown.
Yeah, no, you definitely
Retrieve.
would be able to do that.
Let's move to a different quadrant.
So here I'm fishing the clock.
There we go.
And I was pretty consistently getting into fish as I was going. So I was fishing the clock and I was changing depth. And I think I got down to like 45 seconds and it wasn't doing anything. So,
Okay.
so that's me scraping fat wood. I don't know if I mentioned it, but I was scraping fat wood from the roots of that tree to start the fire, and this is the fat wood right here. And for those that don't know what fat wood is, it's basically, pine trees have a lot of resin. That resin is flammable, and fat wood is typically when the tree is injured, it sends a whole lot of that resin to that spot to try to fix it. When trees die, so when you've got dead standing wood, all of that sap sort of sinks down to the bottom, and the base of the tree tends to have a lot of fat wood. That doesn't mean the tree has to be dead. I mean, when you've got trees that have been cut off, like branches have been cut off. I had a tree in my yard. I was trying to make a fire in the backyard, and there was a branch about this. There was a little stump about that big, where a branch had been cut off, and there was a little stump, and it had gathered a lot of resin. And so I just scraped that off, and I was able to start a fire in my yard. So doing the same thing here, coming up with a tinder bundle. I am absolutely rubbish at tinder bundles. So whenever I get the chance, I try to practice them. And that's what this was. Light bulb covers as rod cases. I looked at those a long time ago, and the issue that I had, at least with the ones that I found, were they weren't stiff enough. And so I was lucky that I found that black tube that I have. They don't make them anymore. It's kind of a retro, 80s thing. And I was in Bishop, and I found it in one of the one of the gear shops in Bishop, and I've been using that. It's adjustable, so I can slide it in and out depending on whether I'm carrying 3-piece rods or 2-piece rods. But yeah, I mean, it may be different now. And this was like, I was looking at light containers like 20 years ago, and they just weren't strong enough. They would just buckle.
Okay. Here's my little tinder bundle, and my dark timber toddy, and my ferro rod.
There we go.
So what I didn't show was us cooking Rod's Spam.
Yeah, get in there now.
So that's the end of day 2, and it's a little bit cooler than it was last night. I can already feel it. The fire is out. I put in 12 liters of water, so it should be pretty well out.
Yeah, I considered the art tube as well, but again, this was when I was trying to look for this stuff. It was like 20 years ago, and the materials are better now. They're lighter, they're stronger. Back then, you were looking at really either flimsy tubes or very heavy tubes.
It's a little bit colder than it was yesterday. I'm not too concerned about that. It's one of those embrace the suck moments. I'm not worried about getting cold. I've got plenty of layers. I've got layers I haven't even tapped into. But I do have sore spots from last night. So I'm not sure how I'm going to manage this second night. But I got to manage it. And tomorrow afternoon when I get home, it'll be a memory. So, it's just one of those things you got to do sometimes when you're backpacking. It's 8:15.
And I guess, yeah, it's Wednesday. Kind of weird not working. Yeah, the night wasn't so bad. It was cold last night. I think it's the first time that I've ever completely zipped up my my sleeping bag. And when I mean completely, I mean up to the very top, hood on, looking like a mummy. But that said, I still haven't broken into, you know, my extra gear. I mean, I've got this down jacket which I haven't needed to wear yet, and I was actually fairly comfortable last night, and by that I mean I was more comfortable than I was the night before, even though I've got the
Yeah, Daiso's got a lot of really good stuff. You know, I mean, for pretty much anything.
you know the hot spots on my back of my hip. I was able to use my rain jacket.
A pool noodle. That's a pretty good idea.
And my extra clothes to provide support to my torso is kind of a mini pad, and that took the pressure off of the hot spots, and it made it actually not so bad. In the last couple hours, I mean, it's 8:15. I never sleep this late, but the last couple hours, I got really comfortable. So yeah, I took a couple extra hours of sleep there, and feeling pretty good right now.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure the Daiso in Pleasanton would have it. I haven't been to that one. There's one up here, so I haven't been to that one.
We've got two huge fish in this pool below.
Now this is cool. So right there's a fish right here, and then I think that might be a fish that swims up, or maybe it's already up here.
Plus.
Yeah, there it is.
Those
Those are good
My-
sized fish. This one and that one.
My rod and my kit away.
Definitely bigger than anything we saw in the lake. Hey, Nick. Yeah, no worries. Yeah, I knew it was Pleasanton. I am very familiar with Pleasanton. Now that's the coolest cabin.
Back at the car, Shinto put it at 3 hours and 13 minutes, 7.31 miles. I came into this trip pretty ill prepared. You know, I just wasn't into getting all of my gear together before the trip. And I learned a few lessons, learned how to keep myself comfortable on hard land. Learned that at this time of year that the bog around the lake isn't any drier than it is any other time of the year. I really thought being later in the season, it may be less boggy, but I guess those springs run pretty true. Learned that this time of year you got lots of big fish in that creek, which most of the other times that I come, there aren't really any fish in the creek. So this is the first time I've seen a substantial number of fish and a substantial number of fishable sized fish. So that was cool. Yeah, so ended up being a great 3 days. Well,
yeah. So Daiso's a good little, really good for Japanese snacks and candy, and my wife loves it. There's a whole lot of like little knickknacks and stuff. If you have like a workshop at home, you can find like little boxes and whatever kind of stuff in there that are handy to have in a workshop. Yeah, you could probably use a lot of their stuff for flying tying for sure.
that concludes the year-end review. If you've watched to this point, as always, thank you. I hope you enjoyed it. I really appreciate everybody watching and all the interaction that I get during the year. And hopefully everybody has a wonderful 2025.
So there you go. That is the end. I will go ahead and play the outro just to play the outro. I'm happy to hang out and answer questions and talk to you guys if you want. Do I happen to tie flies myself? Yeah, I do. Actually, my buddies and I I am famous for not attending. My buddies actually have a Wednesday night fly tying group, which I should be going to. Maybe I'll go to it this. Well, I won't go this week. Maybe I'll go next week. But yeah, I do tie flies, and I always tell myself I'm going to tie all the flies I need before the season starts, and I have never done that. So, yeah. Where can you get the song? You can't. So the song was written for me by my friend who releases under the name Breaking Shadows. And I think it is the one song of his that he has not actually released out to the public. He's got a YouTube channel, and I'll link that in the description later. He's also got, I guess you can find him on Spotify and all that sort of stuff, but he's made several different versions for me, and it's exclusive to me. And so, you can't get it anywhere. Let's see. I have the HMH. Yes, you've watched my fly tying video. Thank you. You're one of the 3 people. Thank you for that. Well, actually, so the way that he explained it to me, the fact that I put it out, I was the first and only person to put it out, and I've got all the the copyright stuff in the description saying that I own it and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, there's no issues. Is Ed still on? I know Ed had questions he had. Are you part of any fly fishing clubs? I used to be, but not any longer. Back when I first started fly fishing, in the late, well, I guess it was early 90s is when I started. Anybody have any questions? Ed, are you still on? One in Fresno, 3 Rivers area, but I'm not obtaining any information. In terms of fly fishing clubs, there are fly fishing clubs all over the place. I mean, Fresno, I guess there's not a whole lot of stuff around Fresno, but, up here in the Bay Area, there's probably a fly fishing club like every 15 miles, I would bet. I mean, there's one in Berkeley, and there's one in Walnut Creek. There's one in Diablo. I think Diablo, which is in Livermore. So yeah, they're quite prevalent up here, but I guess there's more people as well. Am I going to the fly fishing show? I may be going to the fly fishing show. I've thought about it. I haven't gone that frequently over the last several years. And I think this year, if I'm not mistaken, it's the weekend of the 28th, right? It's like the last week of the month. Yeah, so it's like the 28th and the 28th and the 1st. So I don't know at this point. I was supposed to be racing. Yeah, it looks like I was supposed to be racing that weekend, but I'm not racing because I'm not in shape. So it's highly likely that I will be there on, well, I shouldn't say highly likely. It's possible that I might be there. Well, no, Friday, maybe. I don't know. Let's just say that. I don't know. If you see me, come by and say hi. Yeah, I do need, I do kind of want to take a look at some new rods. It's been a while since I've looked at, what they're doing in graphite. And I do want to, I want to see if the rods have come back down in terms of their actions. I mean, part of the reason why I started creating or making my own bamboo rods is because I like medium action rods, like the old Diamondback Classic Trout, the old Sage LLs. And so when I started making rods, the rods were getting faster and faster and faster. You went from, you went from the Sage SP, and then, Sage's rods just started getting progressively faster. And I don't enjoy a fast rod. I mean, they're easier to cast. Sure, you can get more distance, whatever. But The one thing I don't like about them is they always feel stiff to me when I'm fighting fish, and I don't like a stiff feeling rod. So I have kind of wanted to. I mean, I understand that Sage put out the LL series again. I don't know when they did that, but somebody mentioned to me that they have a second LL series that they've put out. And so I just kind of want to see if anybody's put out any sort of medium action rods. And I've actually thought about fishing more graphite this year, because I've got a bunch of rods up in my closet that are medium action graphite rods that that I don't fish anymore and that you don't see anymore, like the aforementioned Classic Trout by Diamondback. And so I was thinking, I would kind of like to get back to fishing some of those, at least on the small streams. How do I determine? Let's see. When I fish, I want to avoid people. Yes. What was that in response to? How do I determine where you're going to start my season? Hot Creek seems like a given. Well, Hot Creek, yeah. So the Mammoth trip is a given. I've been going to Mammoth either on Memorial Day weekend or July 4th. It started out as a July 4th weekend back when I was in college with my buddy. We would do these kamikaze trips over to the Owens. And then, I guess it was 10 or so years ago, whatever it was, maybe it was 12, we secured our reservation on Hot Creek, and the reservation system on Hot Creek is perpetual. So as long as you continually go, you keep it. And so what we used to do is we used to do like 4 days at Hot Creek, and then we do 4 days at the hotel. So I'm happy at Hot Creek. My wife is happy at the hotel. Back in the day, they had the outlets in Mammoth, and so she really enjoyed her time there alone. But now she gets stuck at the ranch because there's no more shopping in Mammoth. But it's basically just what I kind of feel like I want to do, and where I think the fishing is going to be good. So I started putting together my trips for the season. There's sometimes Roger will come up like this around this time of year, and we'll actually plan out what we're going to do. But a lot of it is, where do I want to go? What did I want to do last year and didn't get to do? So in terms of, opening day for me is typically one of two places. It's either going to be Yosemite or it's going to be up on the Upper Sac. And I haven't done the Upper Sac in a long time. Water's high, yada, yada, yada. Yosemite, I had not fished Yosemite for a while, so I'm kind of liking getting back to Yosemite and doing some more small stream fishing, because I really haven't done that much of it. So this year it's probably going to be Yosemite. Then it's going to be Mammoth. There's I mentioned fishing around Lake Tahoe. There's that Cutthroat Lake that I fished a couple years ago that I haven't fished in a while. I kind of want to get back there, see if I can pick up some big cuts. There's a Golden Trout Lake that I had talked about. That there was a video where Chris and I went up to the Golden Trout Lake, but we didn't stay the night because a storm came in. I would kind of like to spend the night there because I haven't spent the night there in a long time. So that's probably on the docket. I've been planning for the last couple of years to get in and fish for some Paiutes. Didn't get a chance to do that last year, so that's probably going to happen. There's the off-trail lakes at the Immigrant that I wanted to do that I didn't get done last year, so that's definitely going to happen. So that's like a half dozen trips right there. Roger and I are talking right now about where we want to go. I guess probably over Labor Day weekend. It's either going to be back out over Duck Pass, or we're thinking about maybe going back in a little bit further. If you go back up over Duck Pass, I want to be there for a good week or so, like I did this year. I really like the fact that I was able to have at least plan. I mean, it didn't happen. I was able to plan at least 2 long trips, and I got one in. Let's see. When was the last time I fished Yosemite? I only fished Yosemite once last year, and that was in the spring. That was that first video I put out about North Green Creek or whatever I called it. I forget what I called it. Yeah, definitely not its name. But Yosemite, I mean, Yosemite is good all year round. I mean, and I've got videos on the channel about fishing Yosemite all year round. So Yosemite's got good early season fishing. I may fish. I don't know if I'll get out to Yosemite in the fall. Maybe I will. I haven't. Yeah, maybe. I mean, Yosemite's got all types of fishing. You can fish for all. You can fish for goldens. You can fish for bookies. You can fish for browns. You can fish for rainbows. It's all pretty good. Let's see. What's my favorite trailhead in the 3 categories of scenery, big fish, and solitude? See, solitude is the last one. And that, if you hadn't mentioned solitude, then it would definitely be Kennedy Lake. But since you've got solitude in there, well, yeah, that's a tough one. I mean, in terms of long trips, I would still say the Immigrant, when you're talking big fish. If you're not talking big fish and you're just talking solitude for a couple days, probably Cottonwood Lakes, as strange as that sounds, because you can actually find solitude at Cottonwood Lakes if you just stay away from the main lakes. So yeah, I think that's all I'm going to say about that. Yeah, right. I'm not in shape. I'm not, Emran. Yeah, I'm not, believe me. I'm definitely not in shape right now. Think of trying to get to Yosemite early in the season to try out some of their gutter creeks. That looks so enticing, and doing my research now. Okay, cool. I'm probably going to be heading out at, I rarely successfully get out on opening day. Let's see, opening day this year is going to be what? The 26th? If I'm lucky, I'll get out on the 27th. More likely, it will be like the 3rd or the 4th. So normally I would say, oh, sure, I'll meet you up there. But my motivation to get out on opening day isn't always what it needs to be. Medium action with a long belly is what I would do. Yeah. Yes. And that's exactly what I used to do. I used to fish my Sage LL with a Wolf triangle taper. You just got a fiberglass rod. Oh, cool. Any tips coming from graphite? Yeah. So, the way that I tend to adjust to a rod is, when you pick it up, start with like very narrow strokes, right? Like very sort of short, narrow strokes, very narrow casting arc, and try to get used to putting tight loops into it, right? And then slowly let out more line and start letting out your casting arc. And I think if you do that, you'll learn how to control the tip better and the rest of the rod as you open that casting arc. Well, thank you for enjoying the videos and watching them, Seth. I really appreciate that. You want to try Cathedral Lake? Well, Rod fished Cathedral Lake. Rod, are you still on here? I don't remember how that went for you, but if Rod's on here, he fished Cathedral. Fished the ranch for the first time this year, and you need a perpetual. Yeah. Good luck with that. It took me a few years to get a perpetual, and I just lucked in. We have the smallest cabin, and I think what happened was somebody gave up one of the bigger cabins, and the guy in the small cabin moved to the bigger cabin, and we got the small cabin. But it's fine. I mean, the 3 of us. It's only ever that. Actually, I have been there with 4 people. The very first time was it the first time or second time I went there. My buddy Eric and his girlfriend at the time, and their baby. We all went up there. Actually, Was she with us? Maybe she wasn't born yet. Maybe she wasn't born yet. Sentinel Hub Playground is a great source to find fairly current sat images to follow ISAT. Yes, it is. Very, very definitely. Very definitely. Didn't you? I thought you fished Cathedral Lake. No? Okay, I guess I'm wrong. What is opening day? Opening day is the first day of the regular trout season. So last Saturday, the general trout season is typically last Saturday in April to, what is it, October 15th, I think, is probably the general. I haven't actually looked in a long time to see what the general trout season is, but it starts the first Saturday in April. That hasn't changed. The last dates may differ. I typically don't pay much attention to the typical trout season unless I am fishing streams, right? If you're fishing high mountain lakes, the majority of the high mountain lakes are open year round if you can access them. There are exceptions like Cottonwood Lakes and that sort of thing, but the rule is typically if you can access the lakes, then it's typically open. You fish Lone Pine Lake. Ah, right. You fish Lone Pine Lake. What's your biggest golden out of Yosemite? What's your largest golden in general? I'm still searching for that 20-inch. Biggest golden outside of Yosemite. I'd have to go back and watch that that Cathedral Lake video. I think we hooked into a 15-inch golden, but I don't think we actually landed one. So I'm gonna say 12 inches just to be on the safe side from Yosemite, but I think we hooked into a 15-inch one, or at least Chris did. Maybe Chris landed one. I'd have to go back and watch the video. I don't remember. In terms of my largest golden, it's probably a little bit over 20 inches. I think I've got a few on the channel that are actually in the 20-inch range. Maybe 23 inches is maybe the biggest golden that I've landed. I hooked into one last year that would have gone way over that. I mean, it was huge and I couldn't even move it. I mean, it was just sort of sitting there in the water column, just not moving. It was absolutely huge. But I think if you go back and look at some of my mammoth golden trout videos, I think I've got some in there that probably come in at 20, close to 23. The golden that let's see if I can find it. The golden that I had on my website for the longest time. Let's see here. Where is it? That one was, let's see, gallery. No, the gallery's not responding. That one was it was in that range. I mean, it was pretty big. High country fish. Yeah, so this one came out of a lake near South Lake Tahoe, and that one was pretty big. That was at least 20, if not bigger. My biggest fish in general was, oops, where did they go? Did I close it altogether? I didn't think I did.
I am Jim Lowe.
My biggest fish altogether was probably in that range. There's caught, well, that the Houghton that I caught a couple years ago. And I don't remember how big that was. That was somewhere between 23 and 26. That was definitely the biggest that I've ever caught. Yeah, I'd have to look at the regs. I would bet that the streams follow the general trout season. I think you can fish in the valley all year round. I think you can fish the Merced in the valley all year round. But you know, there are going to be some closures, I think. Best Mexican food. You know, I like the Loco Fraioli. That's where I go. I know you like that other place that's more popular, but I like the Loco Fraioli. Lake in the Clark Range past Merced Ranger Station that holds them up to 16 inches. It holds Goldens up to 16? Well, the lake that I'm going to that I go to is fairly well known. Yes, there are some golden lakes in the Tahoe area that are overlooked. Very definitely. The one that I caught that fish at is very well known. I don't name it. I still don't name it, but there's a video on the channel where Chris and I went there, and anybody that's gone there would recognize it. But yeah, I caught that. I think I caught that in like my first or second year of high country fishing. It was an absolute fluke. I was fishing like I guess it was a dry dropper. I had I probably had a Parachute Adams on, and the fly I caught it on was a pheasant tail. I was still fishing pheasant tails back then, and it was like a size 20 pheasant tail. Taco trucks up by the casino that I got 2 weeks ago. It was delicious. The casino in Bishop? Or is there a casino now in Mammoth? Do I ever fish outside the season? If by that you mean, do I fish illegally? No, I don't. Not on purpose. But sure. I mean, there are different. I mean, the thing about California, at least, is that you can fish all year if you want to, right? And so typically this time of year, and I haven't done it yet because I think it's closed. Rod might know better. But I like to fish in the Central Coast, and I haven't done that. And the Central Coast where I fish is open right now. I just haven't gone down to do it. But then the Lower Stanislaus, so in the Central Valley, Lower Stanislaus, the Lower Tuolumne, they both open, I think, on the 1st of January. So I could be fishing for decent sized fish in the Stanislaus right now. Somebody asked earlier about steelhead fishing. I don't go steelhead fishing proper, but the Lower Stanislaus gets a run of steelhead and salmon. And so there used to be 2 times a year where you could go in there and you could get pretty decent steelhead-ish fish. I mean, basically half pounders, but you get real silvery fish in there. And that is this time of year now, and then late summer. Special regs. Yeah, no, I fish. Yeah, I fish. I will. I mean, I can fish special regs. I don't do it so much anymore. Like I used to fish the Stanislaus regularly. I mean, Stanislaus is basically my home waters, and I used to fish it all the time. I don't so much anymore, just because it's gotten crowded, and there's been garbage, and they changed the regs and whatever else. I'm not. I used to get up at like 5 in the morning and go down there, and I just I'm a little bit, I guess maybe I don't want to say less serious, but more relaxed about my fishing. And yeah, I guess it's because I'm just more relaxed about my fishing. What leaders are you typically fishing? I'm typically fishing either a 7-foot. Well, that's a good question. So I used to fish religiously 5 and 6X. And it was either 7 or 9, or 7.5 and 9. Now, most recently, I'm fishing like 3 and 4X. Why am I fishing 3 and 4X? Because I'm finding that I'm getting into bigger fish. And unless you're like dry fly fishing on Hot Creek, where drift is really going to matter, and you want to make sure that you've got something that's not catching those microcurrents, fishing for 3 and 4X is perfectly fine. In fact, when I was dry fly fishing on Hot Creek, I was probably fishing 4X. And that's a thing that Roger's gotten me into, and Denny Rickards is big on fishing like really heavy leaders. What's the deal with the trout report cards? Yeah, so if you're fishing in waters where you're fishing in anadromous waters, where the fish swim out to the sea and back, right? They want you to report how many fish you're catching. If you're catching steelhead, that's what it's all about. It's just keeping track of the steelhead. And in my, I know they require you to send them in, but I don't think I've ever heard of anybody getting prosecuted for not sending them in. I don't think they chase people on it. Would be nice if you could do it online. That would make things easy. Casino in Bishop, taco truck is on the left. Dirt lot heading north. Okay, yeah, I would imagine. Yeah, I would imagine that there'd be good taco trucks down there. Yeah, it can be confusing. I think you weren't here, Nick, but I had mentioned that I had taken my wife fishing on the South Fork of Cottonwood Creek once when it was actually illegal to do so, and it was because the regs were so confusing, and I got caught by a ranger, and the ranger agreed with me that the regs were very confusing and didn't give me, didn't take my gear, didn't give me a ticket or anything else. But yeah, I mean, and once you I guess once you've been doing it a while, then it just kind of becomes second nature. The thing that you really need to look for when you're reading through the regs is first, there is a general trout season. And then the regs are basically set up, at least for streams, the regs are basically set up like, okay, this is the general trout season, and then these are all the exceptions. And when you go looking for the exceptions, the only things you really need to be concerned with are the waters, the county that you're looking at, right? Because a lot of waters have the same name. So you want to make sure that Cottonwood Creek that you're looking at is the Cottonwood Creek in whatever county it is. I don't know if it's Mono, but there's one in Tulare. But anyway, you don't want the Cottonwood Creek in the White Mountains. You want the Cottonwood Creek in the John Muir and Golden Trout Wilderness. So you got to know the counties, you got to know the waters, and then just the time of year. You have to fish your own leaders because you get skunked. Yeah, it's funny because I am all set up to do that. So as you guys probably know, I'm a big fan of Joe Humphreys, and George Harvey and Joe Humphreys are really into tying their own leaders and tying leaders that that perform in a special way. And so I went out and I have a leader tying kit, and I just never make the time to do that. So what I typically do is I usually go out and I'll get like a 9-foot 4X leader, 7.5-foot 4X, and 7.5-foot 3X. And I'll get 3X tippet, 4X tippet, and 5X tippet, and I'll just tip it on, as I need them. But typically, if you're just seeing me fish a lake, just sort of in general, it's probably going to be a 7.5-foot 3 that I tie additional material onto, or 7.5-foot 4 that I tie additional material onto. Yeah, switching over to 4X has been a slow transition for me. It took me a while to get confident that I'm catching as many fish with 4X as I am with 5. But some of the places that we fished this year, like the Golden Trout lakes that we were fishing, definitely needed to fish heavy leaders. I used to fish for bass. I have a fly that it's a green conehead frog, essentially, that just kills them on bass. And there are a few bass lakes in the in the Central Valley. There's Kistler Ranch is one of them where you can go. And I used to go to Kistler Ranch. There's a fly fishing club in Modesto, and they probably still do. They had an annual outing, and so I would take my kayak out there and I'd fish for bass there and do pretty well. I used to fish locally here, take my kayak out to the reservoirs here and fish for bass. One year I went fishing for bass, and I'm casting to the bank, and I ended up catching catfish, which was a pretty cool experience on a fly rod because catfish are tough fighters. But it was crazy. I guess in the spring when there's runoff and stuff running into the lake, I guess the catfish cruise the bank waiting for stuff to roll in. And I caught it. I ended up hooking into like 2 or 3 catfish that day. The SA Absolute Stealth Trout. I don't think I've seen the Absolute Stealth Trout. I'll have to look into that because ChatGPT can write better regs. Yeah, that's probably for Nick. Nick, if you went to ChatGPT and you asked ChatGPT what the regs were in a particular water, ChatGPT could probably go out to the DFG website and pull that information back for you and make it real simple. Very supple. Okay, well I'll look at the Absolute Stealth. I don't necessarily need supple because I'm not dry fly fishing so much, but it would be handy to have on Hot Creek for sure. Punch drug boxers conform. Yeah. Yeah, I live close to the Delta, and so stripers are a thing in the Delta. I've never done it. I think I went up to, apparently the lower stand at Knights Ferry always has a few Delta in it. Always has a few stripers in it. And so I went up there one year with my 6'7" weight, hoping to get into a striper. I probably would have broken the rod if I had, but. Yeah, I used to carry what were they called? Were they called mini lead heads? They're like 12 and 18-inch strips of lead core that you would put on the end of your fly line. I used to carry those a lot, but I've since switched over to Denny Rickard's intermediate sink line for surf around here. Yeah, that makes sense. If you guys like surf fishing, you should check out Rod's channel. He does a lot of that. Feels like 6X. Okay. I'll definitely have to check it out. Ghost shrimp patterns would be a good idea for the Delta. Yeah. Again, it's so many places to fish, so little time. I live close to Puda Creek too, and if you guys know anything about Puda Creek's got some big fish in it. But I haven't fished Puda regularly in a couple decades either. Suppleness makes it harder to cast. Okay, that makes sense. So in terms of, let's see, the notes that I've taken down, you guys would like a video on the fly patterns that I'm fishing. I need to check out the Ops Commando. I'll put down that I need to check out this SA line too. What is it? SA Stealth. Anything else you guys would like to see on the channel? Puda's like 2 hours from you. Yeah, I'm a little closer than that, but I don't get up there much. I probably should. I'm just not so much into wading anymore these days. And from what I understand, you can't fish up by the dam anymore. So Like, you used to be able to hike up and fish that hike from the bridge up to the dam and, you know, fish that section. And you could do that from the bank. But from hearing, you can't do that anymore. I haven't actually looked into it, though. That may not be the case. I don't, you know, I just don't, I'm not really confident about my river wading anymore, I guess is the thing. Hey, Emery, I'm almost done with the schedule, so I'll send that to you. Okay, well, thanks. You know, thanks for coming. And yeah, I mean, if there's anything else you guys want to see on the channel, let me know. I think somebody had another video they wanted me to make, and I only wrote down the fly patterns one, so maybe I'll have to listen to this again. But okay, more live feeds. I'm out of here as well. Okay, if you guys like the live feeds, sure. Maybe I'll do one for opening day. Thanks, Mitchell. Okay, folks. Well, I guess if there's no more questions, I'm gonna shut it down. Anything? If anybody have anything they wanna ask? Going. Okay, so I'm gonna play the out feed, and then
3 days.
that'll be it.
Here, there is life everywhere.
Well, that was bad. Let's do that again.
And hopefully everybody has a wonderful 2025.
Yeah, thanks for coming, Rod.
The hills are calling. Where the
Good night, everybody.
Leave the stress behind. Find my mind with the still water flowing. Lines I'm throwing. Loneliness is not here. There is life everywhere.